Hi, this is Sheila with Conscious Conversation Central, and I'm back in the saddle with my posse tonight. Ladies, PZ Rieger and Lisa Flamino Rush. It is Monday, March the 12th, 2018, and we are going to talk about imagination. Now, this is Call to Your Imagination Mastery. We're going to talk about what imagination really is, right?
Yeah, well, we're going to, as we talked about before, we're going to do it in two different pieces, because the mastery part is the bigger piece. So the big imagination, the whole scope of that, and fully playing. And I thought it would be, might be fun and helpful to play with it in the kind of the linear take on it and the drum beat of, it's just your imagination, or, you're just imagining things.
Yes, and you
have to stop talking to your imaginary
friend,
right, and move up to the expansive one and play with some tools live on camera, kind of thing.
Well, I like that. So one of the coolest shows that my son and I watched when he was a little kid was Muppet Babies. Because in the Muppet Babies cartoon, every time it was on, they were solidly in their imagination. They were playing all kinds of stuff in their imagination. They were building a rocket ship, and they were taking off to the stars, and this one was doing that, and this one's over here doing that. And it was one of my son's most favorite cartoons, and it led to many hours of imaginary play. And being an only child, and having very limited television at that time and everything, he and I did a lot of imaginary play. And
I'm surprised they let it air on TV.
You and me both. And I'm sure there was other programming involved that I'm not remembering at this point, but I do remember the imagination being, because it was one of his favorite, little things that we could get on our little, UHF channels with the little rabbit ears that we had. But, yeah, I lived that long ago. But you mentioned something else there about, how we all, well, maybe not all of us, but I know I heard it too. Oh, that's just your imagination. And I was quite a reader as a fat little kid growing up. That was one of my favorite things. And I would get lost in my imagination in a book, or, the books would come alive for me.
Right. You can travel anywhere in all with books. But how many kids, I know I was one of them. When I was little, I liked books, and then I went into school, and a very expensive private school, and they taught you the reading technique that they used. They switched from the phonic reading, you sound it and spell it and that kind of thing, and they never had from one, I guess, the preschool or something to the kindergarten and first, they never had a bridge to bridge you to the fact that the English language is not at all like that at all. In fact, the English language does not make any sense as far as that. And so I wasn't the only child, I'm sure, but got lost in that gap. And then the way they had reading in school, it was very, you had to read it out aloud, certain things. But the way that they would do it, it was very punitive. Looking back at it now, I could definitely see that it was as punitive. So when my daughter was little, I made sure. She used to leave the library, with stacks of books, and asked me, could I please carry the other couple stacks that were still on the table? I said, and my only thing was, yeah, just sure, you fill out the cards and we'll do it. Because that was, she was practicing your thing. But because it was all of that imagination. I mean, you could have all sorts of things. And she would get, I said, you don't have to just pick them up in the children's section. If there's a book and you want to wander through and there's something about the book that attracts you, feel their spines or look at this or, then we'll take one of those, the quote unquote adult books, take one home and see what's in there. Because again, there's other worlds and adventures. So a great adventure. But I have a sense now looking back on it that I wasn't the only one who, I think by design, although it was a more hidden design, didn't like to read, because then you could not be losing, engaging the imagination and going through all these wonderful travels. So most kids, I think even today, still don't really like to read. I learned to love reading and going to the library when my daughter was little. And then I, just made up for lost time of exploring all amazing, books from there. But be realistic, right? You got to be realistic. And of course, the irony of that is that people don't really understand what reality and all those things are and how they come about and how you can, pop a reality into being through the power of your imagination, because it actually shapes the energy, because things aren't made on the on the linear level. So this piece of paper, yes, you could deconstruct and say, well, it was a tree and then it went through the paper mill and all that kind of stuff. Yes, and that's correct from a logical standpoint of how that happened. But the tree, or any of these other things is all energy, and this construct of the world is here because we're all in it and giving it power and making it so, and as more and more people are actually pulling out of that and not giving it power, why do you think, and this is a whole other conversation, but we'll go with it for a minute, why do you think that the system is crumbling? Why do you think that the energy frequency vibrations are expanding? Why do you think that there's talk of this event or event horizons, the way it came to me, is coming and coming faster, and there's all this conversation about it, and it's lighting and firing up the imagination and all that kind of stuff? Well, what's the common thread? All of the beings, right, in this conversation and so on and beyond, because we're dismantling it, because we're pulling it all down, because we're taking our more linear consciousness out of it and expanding, and when we step back we can go, whoa, wait a minute, there's not just this box here, look at all that stuff over there, and whoa, look at those cool things. And that's what we're doing. So that's why it's all coming down, because we're doing it, because it's an inside job, and collectively we're doing it to step and dance and play into the next level.
Yeah.
And we do it through imagination, because that's our higher mind, creative mind.
Nice. I know as children we're taught to stop daydreaming. Get serious. It's all about hard work. And the daydreaming is the most important thing.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Yeah. And, to take it into the hard work. So how many, and, what little is actually given of truth in the purported history books, for at least for certainly for just the known history, and history actually goes much further back. But that's a whole nother video. Sheila really wants to play with it. So I totally lost where I was going. I was dancing with Sheila and her.
You were talking about the known history, but I had a sense, and I could be wrong about this, but when we were talking about imagination and how important it is.
Oh, right, great, thank you. So
Mhm.
in Wikipedia, that truthful holder of information. And other places, you can find that people who had great inspirations or great, achievements or great inventions, well, it was the shower and other places where the mind can open and dance and play with all that. And what? Connect to the higher mind, creative mind. So, but that's very quickly, glossed over because you should be practical and you got to be realistic and all that.
Well, exactly. And if I'm not mistaken, there's at least two beings that historically have been touted as very smart scientific individuals. And a lot of folks gloss over the fact that a lot of their discoveries and their inventions came about due to thought experiments, which, okay, that's a fancy term for daydreaming. I mean, Einstein and Tesla both conducted thought experiments, and I submit that that is only termed that way because they were scientists.
Right.
Um,
Well, Tesla used to actually he'd be in a conversation like this, and of course they didn't have video back then, but someone would be standing right next to him and he'd say, describing this, and he'd say, see, you can do this, and you move the lever and it does this, and look at that, and then he'd go, but I'm trying to figure out this, how this works. Oh, I got it, and he's doing it and describing it, and the person standing next to him and going, what are you talking about? Can't you see it's right there? Because he had the video playing right there, and he was working it out in his thought experiment again to try to put it in the mind. It wasn't in his mind; it was in his higher mind, and that's
yes.
Kind of going on. So
No, exactly.
I think before we kind of play even more depth with the imagination and how to really get back your to reclaim, remember, re-engage with may be the best way to say it, your mastery of that in the physical being, which is where we're all going, which is the other video. Let's play for a moment, if you guys want to, with some examples, some tools for
Okay.
Love that idea.
So now, Sheila, I thought of these are tools that I started using a long, long time ago because I was often told, stop daydreaming, and it's just your imagination, or you're just using your imagination, or whatever it was. And so there was a time when I got locked out of my imagination. And there was a time when I would describe that, if I thought about it because it was a long, long time ago, I thought about it in the terms of speaking of my pineal gland being calcified. I would say, well, mine's just left the building. It's not even there, because to close my eyes, it was just dark, and I could sense things, but there was, the bulb was not only broken in the projector in my video screen in my head, but so I tried to, and I came from a family that was artistic and creative, and I was, in various ways artistic and creative, but so those kinds of things were shut down. And I know you mentioned, Sheila, sometimes that when you close your eyes, with the exception of seeing sometimes these bright swirly colors, but not all the time, you don't really see anything.
Right.
So this was one, and I have been nudged or connected with different things on imagination that I've been posting on the IUB, and I'll put some more up. I'm trying to find this article that I found years ago about this. Anyway, put that up. But about streaming different images together and some stuff. But what I'd like to do is play with that. So I would say sit back and get comfortable and close your eyes and take some nice deep breaths. So think of breathing from your heart area and not your lung area, and not thinking with your mind that you're breathing, but that you're just feeling it. So your heart, as you breathe in, is expanding. And as you breathe out, it's actually expanding. And really feel that breath. Feel it in every part of your body. Feel it all the way down when you're breathing in, that air that's coming in that's just delicious and that's thriving in your being. Feel it go all the way down to your toes. And they're so happy that breath is coming in, because that breath is life and information and kind of currents that they can dance on, all because every cell in your body is a community of cells. And when you breathe out, think of maybe it's a whisper on the air that you're connecting with other beings, maybe beings like yourself or beings that some people may not see, maybe imaginary beings. And I'd like one of you to choose who's going to go to play first. Just raise your hand. Okay, you can't both not do it at once. Okay, Lisa's going to go. And what I'd like you to do, Lisa, is keeping your eyes closed in a relaxed, soft close. Open your vision on the inside behind your eyelid and describe for me what you see. So don't think about it, just what's the first thing you see. And if you don't, quote unquote, see anything, it's dark or something, then describe that.
It's just dark for me.
Okay. So is it smooth dark or is it rough dark?
No, it's not smooth, it's rough.
Okay. And so when you look at and you notice the roughness, would that mean that some is more dark and others is lighter dark?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so that's what I want you to do. I want you to describe, because as you're noticing that,
okay,
the whole thing's going to change.
Well, it's kind of like there's darker squiggly lines around.
Mm-hmm.
And there's also lighter, almost pulsing lines.
Oh, okay. So we went from nothing's there to various colored darkness to squiggly line dark. So that's why I'm playing with you, because oftentimes when people do this, they say, I got nothing, it's just dark, I don't see it. But they don't look to see what's actually, they don't allow themselves to play with that. Okay, so do you still see, what do you see now?
It went like darker to lighter, and now it just looks lighter.
Okay, and what, is there any shapes?
Yes, but they're changing, morphing. Nothing is staying.
Ah, okay. So, and do they fill your whole field of vision?
Yeah.
Can you ask with your heart one to just hold still for a moment so you could play with that particular one?
Okay.
See what's the shape, texture? What are you noticing about that?
It was kind of a swirling.
Okay.
And then it just stopped.
Okay. And is there any, can you notice any variation in gradation of shades of black or dark or gray or?
Yeah, there's quite a bit of that.
Okay.
That's what's creating the swirling.
And can you turn on the light in your projector room in your, where you're looking? Is that shining more light on it?
A little bit, yeah. It's making the contrast more contrasty.
Okay. And can you think and feel into illuminating that more? Or have other shapes come to play?
More colors. There's depth now.
Okay. Okay. Describe more. Keep going.
Oh, like I can see a depth perception.
Okay.
There's distance and then there's up close.
And describe the colors.
It's a deep purple and a black.
Okay. And are all the areas of purple and black all the same shades, gradation?
No.
Okay.
No. Yeah, they're different.
And describe how?
It's reminding me a bit of like a kaleidoscope.
Oh, okay. So describe the kaleidoscope you're now seeing, because you've got
Well, it's just different shapes blending into each other, different colors moving around. Nothing I could look at and say, oh, that's a flower. You know what I mean?
So a kaleidoscope, though, isn't that one where you can kind of turn it, even if it's an inexpensive?
Yeah, it's turning, definitely, yeah.
Okay. And so can you illuminate it a little more?
I'm not too good at that.
Okay. Well, just think illuminate it more.
It makes it more not colorful. There's like a pearlization that comes when I try to do that.
Okay.
It's like light is coming.
Well, that would be illuminating it, yes.
Well, I mean, it's purple, so it's still pretty dark.
Okay.
I don't know.
Any texture to it? Any texture to that?
But it's not getting lighter as in I can see anything. It looks gauzy. It looks like silk.
Ah.
And you know how silk reflects light, kind of shiny?
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about when I say it's shiny. It's luminescent.
Okay. All right.
But it feels like material.
Cool. So is there anything else that wants to play with you there before we go into Sheila? Okay.
No.
Cool. So that was just a couple minutes, right? And you went from nothing, dark.
Yes, I saw nothing.
But you did. You saw a lot actually when you started to feel and connect with what you saw.
Yes.
Well, that's how that working that muscle again, that visualizing, that letting it play. Sometimes things come right to you. Like I've heard you say when you're having a dream, it's very vivid, very colorful, right?
Yes.
Because you're relaxed, because you're in a different brainwave pattern, because you actually have risen back out to a higher vibrational frequency where you're playing at that moment. And when you're sitting in the chair, you're not, at this moment anyways, weren't doing that. So, but this and it also the ego mind, unless we have come to an agreement with it, will want to jump in and say, I'm going fully on reality here and there's nothing there.
Yeah.
But again, if you play with it, so the reason I wanted to use that as an example for you only yourself to experience it.
Yes.
So that you can see, and there's ways you can play with it. So, maybe think about doing it for, 5 or 10 minutes. If you can do it a little bit longer, it lets you get into play with it, and do it at different times of the day, just all of a sudden maybe you've just finished doing something, or you're waiting for something, there's a few minutes, the chore that you're doing before it finishes, and I don't know, taking something out of the oven or the laundry or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
And sit down for a moment and do that. And to also help turn off the brain with, I don't have time for this, that time thing, see previous video, you can set a timer on your phone or however you're doing it for X number of minutes. And so now you've taken time out of the equation, forget about it, and just play with what do you see.
Yes. That was beautiful. I enjoyed that. Yeah, I'm going to do more of that.
Cool. All right, Sheila.
Hold up. Before we start, I have to say something.
What?
Because I was sitting here imagining, in my own little imagining, and you were picking up mine. What I mean by that is you said something about a flower, and I was like, I was sitting amongst a
Cool.
Go back in the video, and when you say flowers, you'll see me go. Because I was sitting in.
I love that.
She was sniffing the flowers.
It must have been lavender, because I was seeing a lot of purple.
Well, I had colors and all different kinds of colors, but when BZ was first speaking to both of us and then the out breath and whisper, immediately I started connecting with a childhood experience of myself with what I knew to be a true experience that I was told over and over and over again was my imagination. And that was my experience with the fairies in a field of flowers. And so as I was sitting there experiencing that for myself, and you said, the whole, I don't know, I wanted to share that because I was like.
That's very cool. So that's a great example, of the power of playing with this, because it builds that muscle back up so that you can then tune into that all the time. So you'll have those videos going, all the time, and you can direct them. Your soul will direct them and play things for you, all the time.
Yeah, I'd like to be clear, however, that, okay, so the feeling and the sensation and all of that I was having, but when I've heard you say things like you have a video that's playing, and when you were speaking with Lisa about opening that lens and see, I don't have that. So it's like, I'm like I don't know if it's like I get lost in that whole linear thing of what I'm expecting, which I think is possible because, as I said, it wasn't it's not so much I saw the flowers as more it was a feeling and a memories of my childhood, and then just allowing all of that to wash over, all while I'm having these swirling colors that I was physically seeing behind my eyes. So it was like, it's not an actual visualization that I was having. It was more of a different experience while I was seeing swirling colors. I don't know if I said that right.
Well, you said what you experienced, so that's absolutely perfectly right, because you said it.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I don't know if I was communicating.
Well, let's play. Yeah, you were, and I got it. And I'm saying that's the way you communicated, and that's, it's for others who were playing with that to come to your description and play, not for you to conform, right? Because this goes back to, it's just your imagination. This is not a conforming thing. I don't get it, so you don't conform to the person who doesn't get it, right? You may give more description, right? If they, you know,
Right.
they can ask. That's where a conversation comes in. But what I want to do for a minute, because I think this will help answer the question, and it may help you, because everybody sees differently, everybody experiences differently. And one of the reasons that this is particularly helpful is because, you know, if the knee-jerk thought is that I don't see anything, it's just dark, right? Then it's not working, it's broken, I know it's no good. I just, you know, obviously, you know. Then Smarmy's like, he's rumbling and he's tap dancing and he's, you know, doing grand jetés across the floor.
As Smarmy has been known to do.
Right. So that's why this is helpful, because even if, you know, on the actual seeing of the colors and videos and that kind of stuff, the best you can get, and I my sense is with Lisa that she can go way beyond that, but to go from it's dark to where you went, that was a big move, right? So you play with it. Now some people, and you may be one of them, and yes, I'm sure there are terms and stuff for them. I don't get hung up on the terms, so I'm not going to be the best person to relay those terms, you know, there's clairvoyant and all these kinds of things where you're seeing different things. So that someone else is probably much better at I am than doing that, because I don't use those as things to hang my energy.
Well, one of the reasons I brought it up is because until just recently, I had an expectation / judgment in regards to whether or not I was visualizing correctly.
Yeah, well, that's why I don't, you know, like meditation or, you know,
right.
all the different clairs and stuff, you know. Yeah, I used to I studied them ages ago and tried to think, and I came up with this because it was so ingrained, you know, because I wasn't good enough and all these kinds of things. I couldn't do it right, you know, no matter how hard, right? So I couldn't meditate and all the clairs and this and that. So I thought, well, I'm not using those labels anymore. I'm stepping away from that. I'm just going to be and play, and it is what it is. And if I like it and it works and I expand, then that's what I'm hanging my, you know.
And that is exactly why I brought it up, because what I'm saying here is I had that same issue up to and even including just, I don't know, last week, having this judgment against myself because I was having this whatever. I've let that go now, and it feels to me like I don't care. I don't care that everybody else is doing it this way or that way or the other way. I'm stopping having that issue with myself, and the moment I've released some of that, some really cool things have started happening.
That's the beauty. That's exactly what I'm saying. Like, well, you know, I suck at that, so I'm not going to worry about it. I'm just going to do it this way. And that's what so now what you're understanding in a way that's much more visceral and palpable is when I say you are the expert.
Yes.
Right? It's for you. So, you know, someone could say, well, I do this and it's got a label, you know, we've thrown out some of those labels of different, you know, powers and this and the other thing. Okay, great. That's terrific. And I love that. And I love hearing that someone describe it or whatever. It's great. But for me, instead of trying to, you know, be like that or measure up, which usually is in the conditioning what happens, right? Or match my imagination or abilities or whatever to something external from me. Like I said, years ago, you know, I came in with all these things and very quickly got them all, you know, stepped right out of me, and then, you know, had to come back on the road and, you know, and do it again. So let's play with you for a minute, Sheila, on closing your eyes and just relax, do some breaths. And I want you looking behind your eyelids just to share what you see and describe what you see and feel or whatever it is. Would you describe that you see anything?
Well, the moment I closed my eyes this time, I see movement and color,
Mm-hmm.
and I had a sense of something swirling, but it was more like objects.
Mm-hmm.
If I had to put a label on it, it would seem like it was a juggler, but I
Okay,
don't.
so let's go with that. So don't put a label on, but so what, describe the juggler.
Well, I was seeing one thing, and it's not there now as I'm describing it because it's kind of like gone away, but there was one round thing in the center, and there were multiple objects, and it just gave me a sense, maybe it was my mind trying to make sense of what I was seeing.
Okay,
And
well, then describe for me what you see and just keep describing it and go for different words: texture, thought, color, shape, shades.
well, currently, as that has now dissipated, currently the only thing I see behind my eyes is I still see the color, and the texture is, again, it's similar to Lisa's. It's a gauzy, interspersed with all sorts of different colors.
Mm-hmm.
And swirling movements. Mine, right this moment, is more of the magenta and orangish, which shot through with the electric blue that I see a lot.
Okay. Can you illuminate it a little bit more so you can see, kind of a broader, get a little bit more perspective on it, so you can, if you're stepping, like you step a little further away from something, you can see a little better what it is? Are they reacting to you playing and observing and noticing them? The shades or the hues or the colors change as you look at them, so when you notice one particular one swirl by, whatever it's doing, dance by.
No.
So describe what you see.
In this moment of now, it's more like it's changing, and there's more green involved. I'm starting to see it as a layer, almost like a river. A river of like smoke or whatever. It's like a green with tinges of orange and gold around the edges. It's very similar to some of the layers of what I was determining I was seeing frequency in.
Mm-hmm. And do any of the layers or do they call attention to themselves more than another for you just in that moment that you're looking at them?
No, it's more like a billowing in.
Mm-hmm. And when you scan all that you can see in this river, is there anything else that you're noticing? Is it smooth? Is it rough? Is it creamy? Is it cool?
Cool.
Okay. Are you in the river? Is the river just in front of you? Are you surrounded
It's
by the river?
more, well, it's really not. I described it as a river because of the way it seemed to be floating, but now it's more like a billowing type of.
Is there a breeze or something that's making it billow?
No, not that I can tell.
Is there anything
It's beginning
outside
to make
of
me feel
the
a bit
billowing?
dizzy,
Dizzy?
dizzying
Uh-huh.
as I'm focusing on it.
And is it that you're focusing on it that's making you dizzy, or is that because you're leaving the density that you were before? And
I don't know, a little bit of both. I just saw something's
something swam by the billowing river?
apparently.
It
I
didn't
have no
break your
idea what it
ankle,
was.
so
It
you're
was
okay.
just it was like
Was it fish?
I, I have no idea. It was a momentary um, shadow of some sort. I don't know. That was the oddest thing.
Okay.
It it felt like it was external to not in my imagination, if that made any sense. I don't know if you, because I have my eyes shut.
Yeah.
It was as if something physical moved in front of my eyes. I don't, of course, I can't see anything, so that doesn't
Nothing
work.
did. No.
I have no
Smart may
idea.
have passed by your imagination view screen, and it could be that the shadow. So another, we often describe the shadow sides, the darker sides, the things that kind of thwart us from doing things.
Mm,
That could just be a thing. So, is
could
there
be.
anything else that wants to come and play with you before we wrap this up? That you're feeling, sensing, seeing?
Well, there's little flowers growing now on the side of my vision over here,
Huh.
like almost like tendril type flowers that are
Like morning glory type things?
trying to open up. Yeah.
And they have colors?
Yeah, there's gold and purple.
Uh-huh. And are the petals creamy? Or pearlescent? Or shiny or shimmery?
It's it's a mixture actually. It's more than one kind of flower, it feels like.
And are there any creatures that are attracted to the flowers? You hear any
Well,
birds?
there weren't, but there are now.
What kind of creatures?
No, the flowers are the creatures actually.
Oh, okay.
That's why it looked like different flowers. That's cool.
Cool. Okay, well, when you're ready, come on back.
I'd like to draw that.
So, what we've just had a live for both of you demonstration of that it's imagination is actually a real palpable, discernible thing. And it's an ability, just like you might learn to crochet, or I don't know why that came up, but because I don't do it, but anyways, or ride a bike, or do something technical, making videos, or anything you might do at a job that you might hold, whatever it is. So it is just as real. And if you didn't have your imagination, as much as you're told, just from a purely linear standpoint, just as much as you're told that you have to be realistic and it's just your imagination, you would have your day-to-day purely linear life would be much more difficult. because it lets you connect to that higher mind, creative part of your mind. But what we've also described here is that when you go through that, and this is a hard setting to do, the lights are bright and you're on camera and all that kind of stuff, but yet you can go and play with that, and if the first reaction in this instance, rather than oftentimes and there's another tool we'll play with probably in another video where of thoughts coming, then that's often if you go to the first one, that going not in this tool, going with the first thing usually is the correct, because it's before the ego mind comes in. This way, because I'm not sure why, but it seems to always work that way, and it certainly did for me. If I go with the first thing that came in, which is it's dark, it doesn't work, the light's broken, projector, whatever it is, right? I can't see anything.
Right.
That's the ego mind coming in right away.
Yeah.
And perpetuating that is just your imagination. Perpetuating that doesn't matter. Perpetuating it, you're realistic, because your eyes are closed, and so you can't see anything, because that's the linear, realistic, obvious, rational thought to say.
Yes.
But when we look beyond that, and then we see, so the other thing too that is that when I say, what do you see? You could hold it as purely a visual thing, but when you'll start to understand that you see from your third eye seeing, for me anyways, the way I would describe it, you see in a multi-sensory way.
Right.
Oh, that's why I was feeling like I wasn't necessarily seeing it, and I was having a judgment on myself because I wasn't seeing it. I was feeling it and experiencing it in a different way.
Right.
Oh, okay. Well,
that's the way I hold it. You see it in a multi-sensory way. Now, just to use me as an example, for sometimes I see it very clearly, like the video turned on and I can see the whole video. So the video is stop and starts, it's got to play. I can, complete almost with the sensing that I'm supposed to be watching something. Does that make sense?
Right.
Right. And sometimes I have, and that's multisensory as well, but the predominant one, if I'm, my mental cognitive wants to go to labeling, it's a video, right? But oftentimes when I say, well, what I'm seeing is, that's purely multisensory, and if I bothered, and oftentimes I can't even imagine why, because I just like seeing what I'm seeing. So why would I, okay, this is coming from, a thinking thing, or, right? Again, that whole, I go with what it is because it's cool and I like seeing it, and instead of trying to pull it all out. So I come up with a short way to describe it is when I'm, you see it from a multi-sensory way. And there you go. Then you don't have to go parse it out. You can just see it, which is the fun stuff.
Well, yeah, and I've heard things like that being referred to as seeing, sensing, and feeling, which is what you just described, a multi-sensory way of looking at that.
Yes, because remember, too, oftentimes where unless you were to parse it out, or if I was to ask you questions, right? And I think that's how something changed with the flowers. So they said, well, there's any fragrance, and are they smooth and creamy? What's the petals look like, right? And then, then you realize, well, wait a minute, that's, or are there any creatures? Well, so then you can say there's sounds, or you hear a buzzing or a singing, or, right? And then, well, when you do that, that's a way, for me anyways, a technique to then see, okay, I realize that now I'm bringing more of that multisensory in, even though I wouldn't normally say, well, I'm seeing with my nose, right? Because it's afraid.
Right.
But it triggers that part of the expanded, it's another way, and the imagination is another way to break out of those boundaries which are imposed on us through the tinkering, and this is one of the other conversations, through the tinkering of our genes and DNA genetic makeup to only use, you've heard the oft phrase, less than 10% of your brain. Well, there's a reason for that. It's, there are locks put in there to do that. But this is helping, along with a whole bunch of other things, that's just flexing those locks, and they're breaking all over the place. So.
Yeah, well, I can vouch for that.
Yeah. So this is just a taste of the imagination thing.
Well, awesome. So we're going to, okay, so there have been those who have asked for tools and the manual, and I guess this is one of them. Put this, write this one down if you're looking for that, because I like this. Thank you. So we want to close this envelope here, I think, unless either one of you have anything to add. Awesome. I guess I'm taking your silence by a no. You don't. Okay. Because we're going to be playing with this again on a larger scale, I think you said. Yeah, PC?
Yeah, and my sense is that Lisa wants to skedaddle off and go play with this on her own.
I have been.
That's what I know. She's out there with the birds and the butterflies and the bees and the trees, and down by the river. And, oh, look at that mountain! Okay, hey, there's a dragon coming in. So that's why Lisa has that look on her face. She's and when Sheila says, "I take that as a don't bother me, I'm playing." Would that be accurate, Lisa?
Yes.
My multi-dimensional friends. I never know where they are, actually.
Sorry. It's real.
All right. Well, this ends another edition of Conscious Conversation Central. And you can always find the links to BZ's blog at the IUV in the body of this video, along with Lisa's Heart Song Musings blog and the Rush Solutions Tools for Transformation. Also, the Friends of Conscious Conversation Central Facebook page link will be in the body of this video, along with my email address if you'd like to be a member of the PPC squad, which is just a fancy name for my email list. Just send me an email with "add me" in the subject line. I don't share my email list with anyone without your prior permission. So thank you. Till next time. Awesome.
Wait.